So we are moving to recruit. It took me ages to find the right photo to represent deep and narrow team structure, but I think I nailed it. Reindeers in the right formation, deep and narrow team structure. You can tell I had a lot of fun putting these slides together. Ed, we all should be very familiar with deep and narrow team structure. I can see a couple of new faces on here. So if you haven't seen deep and narrow team structure, step 5 in the Wize Vault, be all over it. But your one tip around deep and narrow team structure and getting this right, because it is one of the hardest pieces of the puzzle to get right. I don't even think you can get it right completely because it's always changing, but tell us your tip.
Yeah, it takes a few goes at it, and like Carmen said, sometimes you think you might have got it right, and then you sleep on it, or something else happens, and you realise you've got to tweak it a bit. And it's a constant tweaking of the teams, but it's only because people are complicated and they're different, and they've got feelings and emotions, and they've got strengths and weaknesses, and the dynamic is quite difficult to sort of pin down in sort of black and white terms. But the deep and narrow team is all about utilising complementary skills and in order to manage the traffic flow in the organisation. What kills an organisation or a business is the amount of traffic flow that comes through. And the traffic flow is made up of production traffic and communication traffic. And clearly some of us are better at communication than we are at production, and others are better at production than we are at communication. And if you have a flat structure, a flat team structure, you're expecting that person to be able to be everything to everybody, and that's not correct. Now you might get some people like that, but it's generally the minority. The majority of us, including me, have strengths and weaknesses, and I know what my strengths are, and I know what my weaknesses are. So the deep and narrow team identifies helps our people with their various different strengths and weaknesses, and just like a team, just like this photo where you've got a leader who has different skills, and the others have their roles in that team. Just like a sporting team, you for soccer you've got a fullback and a winger who's quick, and we all have our positions because of our strengths, and it's exactly the same when you run a business. So we have to be able to manage both that communication traffic and the production traffic, and we need to have it in a deep and narrow format so that we're complementing each other. And what you end up getting is 1 + 1 is 5 through working together as a team. So rather than having a flat structures where you have extraordinary people, but a deep and narrow team is where you have if you have a flat team, you have champion people, whereas if you have a deep and narrow team, you have a championship team, and a championship team will always beat a team of champions. And hence the reason why we have deep and narrow teams.
Perfect, love it. Jamie, number 1 tip for deep and narrow teams.
Yeah, I think, Brenton, if you run a deep and narrow team, it really follows what I call the rule of 33, and the rule of 33 is where a third of the time you're always going to be teaching someone potentially who's under you, like a new hire. And when you teach someone, everyone will know you really need to know your stuff. And we've all experienced where you've sat with someone and you have to teach them, how to do a particular task. And the learning that comes from that is quite extraordinary when you're teaching someone. When you're learning from someone, that's really the other third. When you're learning from someone above you in a deep and narrow team, that's critical that you learn the skills so that you can do your actual job. And then thirdly, often you'll be sharing with your colleagues, someone is at the same level, maybe on another team, about, what your insight is, what worked for you. So I think if you really do follow and the firms follow the deep and narrow team, you really fulfill that rule of 33, which is, learn, share, and teach. And I know for me personally that's been a great positive interaction with team members in terms of developing my own career and professionalism. So yeah, it's the rule of 33. And if you want more on that, just Google it. It's everywhere, like learn, share, teach. And if you have a deep and narrow team, that's what you'll get in your firm.
I love that. I love the rule of 33. Hiring our deep and narrow team, getting really enthusiastic people, the right people in the right seat, on the right bus, heading in the right direction. Ed, number one tip on recruiting excited, high-performing staff.
The number one tip, and everybody makes this mistake, right? The pressure comes on them and they just think that we'll just throw bodies at the problem, just go hire people. And everybody makes this mistake, and you end up with a flat team structure. The number one tip is to start with the plan. Start with the ideal team plan. What is that? What does that plan look like? And so it's a bit like if you want to build a house, you don't just go and start laying bricks in the backyard. You go to an architect and you get the architect to design the house for you. Plan. And the plan that you have, then you can recruit people for those positions to build that ideal team. And so bring the blueprint for the ideal team, and then based on that blueprint, then look at the people that you have in your organization that you currently have, and you try and fit them into those positions. And then you may have to, if you're short, then you may have to recruit for the missing pieces.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Jamie, you've been doing a lot of hiring this year, helping a lot of firms do a lot of hiring as well. I think if we had to total up the number of people that the Wize tribe have hired this year, it'd be in the hundreds, which is pretty cool. What's your number one tip for hiring great staff?
Yeah, I think it's one of the things I've learned, Brent, with working with lots and lots of firms is some of the most obvious things. And, there's an old saying, hire slow. And when you're hiring, if people don't respond to your emails, if they don't, fill out a form, if they don't give you the basic details that you need, then straight away that's alarm bells go on for me. And I worked with a lot of firms where the owners were really, really keen to hire a particular person, but they couldn't even get the person to fill out a form. They couldn't even get the person to respond. And some of these people that we were looking at were really, really experienced people, highly qualified, like, CPA, MBA, and all sorts of things. So it all comes back to attitude. If someone goes above and beyond to go for a job, then take the obvious things as a warning sign. If someone can't just complete a simple thing or respond to you, then the alarm bells have to go off. And so a lot of the firms that I dealt with, I think the owners were so close to the hiring process, they couldn't see the light from the darkness. So, if someone can't simply respond to basic things or filling out forms, then, that's the biggest tip for me is it all comes back to attitude. I don't care whether you've got 3 MBAs and 15 degrees. Attitude is the first thing, and your attitude will reflect it in how fast you respond and how fast and respectful that you interact with someone who's trying to fill, a job. Yeah,
absolutely. And I guess just to add to that, I think it comes back to that extraordinary system, because emotion can creep in with recruiting other people. But I think if you have that extraordinary recruitment system, that you've got the step-by-step process and everyone goes through that process, no matter what, no matter how you feel or how much you may like the candidate, the outcome will always be the best, as best as possible. So thank you, gents. That is recruitment done. Oh, no, it's not. That's a lie. The final tip in the recruit piece is micro training versus micro managing. Ed, you use this a lot. We've spoken about it a lot in clinics, but can you just sum up this tip in itself?
Sure. If you're a senior client manager, or you're a leader in or you're a leader of your team and you're managing people, then it's absolutely essential you understand that if you don't spend the time to micro train them, you'll have to spend the time to micro manage them. And nobody likes being micromanaged. So it's important that you put the time into micro training them so that you don't have to micromanage them. And micro training is about, delegation, not abdication. And there's a big difference between delegating something down and training somebody and abdicating it to them. Now, delegation is about, making sure the instructions you're giving them are clear. You've got the scope of works on how to do the job. You then follow up. The follow-up is extremely important, rather than just telling them to do something and you never hear from you again. So to follow up, to incrementally keep them on the right path, because often they can go off over time. They could go off in a completely different path. And when I talk to very senior client managers who are managing staff, they say things like this to me. They go, "Oh, look, by the time I train them, I could have just done it myself." It's quicker if I just do it myself, or they don't know how to do it. Well, if they're thinking like that, you've got to snap them out of it, because eventually, if they just keep doing it themselves, you get no leverage out of that, and they'll burn themselves out. Number one. Number two is that it ends up being too costly for the client if you use a very high cost person to do very low level work, so they often say to me, my staff don't know how to do it, so I've got to do it myself. Well, my response generally is, at some stage you didn't know how to do it either, and someone had to train you. And in the beginning, they would have given you something to do, and you could only do 20% of it, and then they had to do 80% of it, and then eventually you could do 50%, and then 80%, and eventually you could do 100%. So when you're training somebody, it's the same thing. Initially they could only do 20%, and you have to do 80%. Then they can do 50%, and you do 50%. Then they do 80%, and you do 20%, and eventually they do the 100%, and all you got to do is check it. Okay, and review it, make sure it's correct. So you've got to lead your team, because often they work in the P&L and not invest in the balance sheet. And you've got to get the balance right between just working in the P&L, being efficient, getting the work out the door, versus the investment in the balance sheet. Because if you don't invest in the balance sheet, then you're not going to be able to grow your business and develop, the juniors coming through, and the holistic approach. The teams have to be trained up. So an investment in your balance sheet requires the senior people to be training the junior people.
Perfect. Excellent. It's such an important topic, and I think it only benefits everyone by embracing this as well. Jamie, anything to add on that tip?
Yeah, I just think in terms of the micro training versus the micro managing, is for everyone in a firm to have a buddy. In that deep and narrow team, it's always great for the leaders of the firm to set up to say, well, look, such and such is your buddy, your go-to guy with the smaller, technical things that you need to learn. There's nothing worse of not knowing where to turn to, or even in that sense, having 2 or 3 people as bosses, where we get shared across teams and that type of thing. So yeah, my biggest tip is for anyone who's in a firm, make sure you've got that technical buddy to go to, which will really help in your learning. Yeah.
Awesome. Great tip. I see Sam nodding his head there. I like that one, I reckon. All right. I want to hear from someone specific, and it's one guest who I'm going to ask to talk about team. Look at it. They light up half the screen.
I think Diane can answer that one. Di?
Diane, I would love to hear, you guys have absolutely nailed the whole working virtually and embracing team culture as part of this massive shift we've had to do. So can you give everyone a quick insight into what you guys have done and maybe one of the highlights of doing it?
T.E.A.M. Together, everyone achieves more. Everyone in the team know about that. We're all very important. There's not one person who has more importance about everyone else. We celebrate our wins. We have, so what we do to keep the glue and the momentum going as a team, every day we have a cuppa. It's 11:45 every morning. It's only 15 minutes, and the rule is you are not allowed to talk about work.
Awesome.
So that's really good. On our Wednesday covers, quite often we would have Wacky Wednesday. So we've had crazy hair days, lipsticks days. Last Wednesday was a pajama day. So we came to work in our pajamas. We had backdrops of bedrooms in the background there. Also at the end of every quarter, because we're a bookkeeping company, at the end of every quarter, we're just working so hard to get the information in and get everyone's lodgements done on time, and it's we're really focused, and it can be quite stressful. So the Friday after that, we always have an end of quarter celebration, and so we had ours 2 weeks ago. We did a virtual escape room, and awesome. We also played a game as well. So there's lots of sorts of things that you can do.
So you're locked in your bedroom or something, are you? On Zoom.
Yeah, so it's fun. It's just a matter of just tapping into wherever possible, those 15 minutes per day. Not everyone can make it every day, but mostly we do get there, and it gives us an opportunity to learn more about each other as well, and the cultures too, because we have 6 now in the Philippines, so it's pretty much 50-50. And I think it's working okay. And
on that note, I'd love to hear if I can put one of your team on the spot. I'd love to hear it from their point of view as to how it's helped the BYO culture, because it would have been a very strong culture before COVID and before working virtually. But how has it helped you maintain that culture? Who's going to put their hand up for me in the BYO team? You're not allowed, Charlotte.
No, I wanted to suggest Micah can go.
There we go.
Hi.
Where's Micah?
Where's Micah? Oh, yeah.
I'm here.
We can see you, Micah. Yep.
Yeah, I've been with BYO for the past 7 months. So the culture of BYO is really, really like a home. It's like my second home. So after I start after I have my BYO, I have my company. I mean my family with me. So BYO for me is like it's like a dream come true job. It's not like you're rooting for the best career path that you wanted, but it's that the family that creates the culture here in BYO. It's really amazing. That's why I really when they come up with they were open for jobs, and I really recruit my friends, which they really I think also really will recommend BYO for their
awesome.
colleagues.
Well, that's a great sign. If you're recommending your friends, then I think the BYO team are doing some good things. Guys, I have to commend you on it. You've done a fantastic job. I thank you all for investing the time in the clinic as well. It's so good to see, and I'd encourage everyone with the team clinics next year to bring your team on. It's just such a, it's just a rich training tool for you. Lunch and learn once a month. We're biased, but we'd love to see more team on this clinic next year.